Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Ham Nation is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by Icom and the IC9100. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation. This is Ham Nation, episode 87 for February 27th, 2013. Show us your shack.
Good evening, everybody. From Pleasant Hope, Missouri, it's K9EID, and it's time for Ham Nation. And it's a show all about ham radio. And tonight we have all kinds of players, as usual. We're glad you're with us. And we're going to get into a lot of stuff here tonight. First of all, let's move down to Costa Mesa. How are you doing, Gordon West? Everything okay?
Everything is great. We're ready for the surf to come up. The water temperature is ready to exceed 58 degrees Pacific Ocean temp. So we're set. Back to you, Bob, in the snow.
Oh, yeah, in the snow. You got that right. We got some pictures later. And then we moved down to Mississippi, and I still see some smoke from last week here. How you doing, George?
Hi, Bob. Doing fine here. I've still got the same project I had on the bench last week, so we have not completely let all the smoke out of it yet, but we'll have some fun stuff to talk about tonight.
Okay, if we have first-time viewers, we're talking about his wonderful segment later on called Smoke and Solder, and it's really a lot of smoke and solder. We've have him build us things, and it's really super nice to have him. And then down to Louisiana, and it's Don Wilbanks. How are you, Don? You okay?
Yeah, we're good. We're a little bit waterlogged. You've had all the snow. We've had a ton of rain. We've got this big hole in our road that is about the size of my office at work. And I thought that my Volkswagen was going to turn into a U-boat last night. We're actually having a detour and go through my uncle's driveway now because we can't. Ours is not passable. So, yeah, we're ready for it to dry out a little bit. Back to you, Bob.
Oh, boy. That's great. Well, Gordo, we missed Julian tonight, but I know he's busy with stuff. But he's also working on a really serious video for next week. We're going to be kind of the first to show the world the Tim Allen, or at least some of the Tim Allen show that's going to happen 2 weeks from tonight. I want everybody to write this down. Don't miss it. Put all your DVRs on. Make sure you get that program of Tim Allen in 2 weeks, because it's a great show. If you haven't seen Outdoor Man, it always features some ham radio gear in the background. But in 2 weeks, ham radio is the subject. They're going to actually be talking between, I'm not sure what and what, but you're going to see a real live amateur radio as a part of the script. Fill me in a little more, Gordo, because I think you were there too, and I'm really excited about this.
It is going to be exciting in that there's live ham radio, but not actually live on the air. We're on dummy loads, but the sounds that are going to come over the Last Man Standing video are quite authentic. Julian was there for about 3 days just to make sure everything was absolutely perfect audio-wise, and between John Amadeo and Julian, it's going to be exciting. So about 2.5 weeks away, and we can't wait to see it. Back to you, Bob.
Yeah, I'm really excited. John Amadeo is really something. He's done a lot for ham radio, and we're anxious to see what they do for this show, and we'll keep you all posted as things progress and get down into the meat of the old show here 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks. But next week, we'll show you some of it and let you see hear what's going on. I've had just a ton of emails, a couple of phone calls, and on the air. I was on the air today on 40 meters quite a bit. I've had so much response from all of you about the last couple of shows about the history of single sideband, and Wes Shum and Nick Tusa, George Meyer. They all did a marvelous job of getting this together about Wes and the company. So keep them coming. Let us know what you want, because I think we're probably going to come back and do some more segments about some of the early gear. I was on last night with my 20A and my 600L, and it was just amazing. I had so many comments about it. I was on the Collins and that. And for some of you that's new to the hobby, there's all kinds of nets. We call them nets. And they're just meetings every Tuesday and every Thursday, or the Collins guys on 3805. And you don't have to have Collins gear to check in, but that's the subject. It's the Collins Collectors Association. And you do hear a lot of good old things. And that's really fun to get in the networks. They have one on Sunday also. But there's networks about just about anything you want to name. It's there. And you want to look around for that. Gordo, an interesting thing came up. I talked to Steve Casey, Zero EBL, today, and they took the history of single sideband segment that we did on Ham Nation. They played it for their club meeting, the Hiawatha Amateur Radio Club in Perry, Iowa. That's a wonderful idea, isn't it?
Oh, that is terrific. And as many of the clubs know, both you and I and the rest of our cast here on Ham Nation, we're available for Skype contacts because we enjoy working with clubs. But most important, like you, Bob, we enjoy getting the emails. And let me tell you, remember when we talked about the Radio Club of America, their 103rd banquet with Dave Sumner, K1ZZ, as the keynote speaker last year around Superstorm Sandy time. Anyway, Carol Perry, WB2 Mighty Good Professor. She heads up the youth program. And wow, Bob, the clubs have really jumped on this. Randy, N0 Tango Golf, is going to be there at our Dayton get-together in Dayton, Ohio in May. And he says for Carol's Youth Forum, he's got an HF radio potential for a deserving youth. So there's one HF radio for kids. And the Amateur Radio Supplies of Haverhill, Massachusetts, they also have a program of a complete HF station for kids. And both of these will be awarded to one lucky recipient, one or the other, in June. So we can't wait to see all of the activities going on. And Radio Club of America's Carol Perry is mighty excited to have all of these great donations coming in for her youth forum that will take place at Dayton. So we hope that you'll be there in Dayton, Ohio. And Bob, do you want to tell everybody about the very special event station that we're going to have in Dayton? Go ahead, Bob.
Well, it will be that week. It will be our 100th Ham Nation program. I just find that amazing. 100 of them. And Mike and Al, Dale, all of the Bill, 5LN, I saw him in the chat room a while ago. They have all worked together, and they came up, got with the FCC, and came up with a special event call. And during Dayton, all during the 3 days of Dayton, we will have a special event station that you can work on the air if you don't make it. Of course, we'll have some certificates. We haven't planned all of that yet, but that'll be coming. But there will be a 100th show special event station of Ham Nation at Dayton. So we'll keep you posted on all that and where we're going to do it from and how we're going to get it all done. But thanks to Mike and all of the net controls that are putting this together, and we really appreciate that. And we'll be giving you more information. We also found out from Leo that we will again this week. I found out from him this week that during Dayton on Saturday, probably around 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon Dayton time, Ham Nation will go up and join Leo on his Tech Guy radio program, and you'll be able to see us on the Twit just like you do here. We're very excited about this. Gordo, that was quite a thing last year, what we were talking to over 1 million people through his radio network, wasn't it?
Oh, that was really exciting. Luckily, they couldn't see us. We all had tuxedos on, but we had shorts below the camera line. But it was a fun get together, and we look forward again to Dayton. And thanks to Leo Laporte for allowing us on his AM radio shows. And wow, lots of excitement. Hey, Edison Amateur Radio Network out here in Southern California, actually Central California. Edison is having a special radio day on March 23rd. And this particular Edison Radio Network group is going to be at the inaugural station that in 1893 came out with three-phase electricity. So if you've got a special event station coming up, let us know here at Ham Nation, and we'll put it on the air. So if you're in the area, you can check it out and take part in a special event. So, Bob, I'm going to jump out of here because I've got to go to a RACES meeting, but I'll be watching 73. Bob, back to you.
Well, thanks, Gordo. We appreciate all of your work, and we'll see you next week here when we get to have Julian tell us all about the outdoor man. And again, for some of the newcomers to the hobby, there every weekend there are hundreds of special event stations. They're all over the place, and it's kind of fun to work them because they can be all around the world, and you get in and work them, and you usually get a certificate or whatever, and it's really kind of fun. I know guys, that's all they do. They never turn their transmitter on except the weekends to find special event stations. So there's all kinds of things in Hamilton. And to be able to do that, you have to have some kind of a station. No, you don't need all of the stuff you see behind me. It's kind of unfair to think about this as a regular ham radio station because it's not. It's a station lab for my work. And I need all this stuff to test different microphones and headsets on different kind of radios. That's what all this is about. Yes, the stuff behind me is kind of like my children. I grew up with them, so I kind of keep that old stuff going. But all the other stuff, we would do that. But let me show you some ham radio stations around the country that are just having more fun than just a kid in a candy store. Julian has assembled some of those. So, Brian, if you'll roll some of those, let's take a look at them in a few seconds each, and you'll see some of these great stations that we're getting pictures. Now, one thing about this, look at this. They put up antennas in the attic. These are for all you guys that say, well, I live in an HOA. Yeah, well, this didn't stop frequencies that we're seeing there, 3 dipoles. And the next picture will show you another one, where another angle of that. The antennas work great in the attic sometime. So don't be afraid to put up some dipoles in the attic. We had quite a show at W0FM some time ago. And gosh, he worked over 100 countries and just having a ball. There's a ham shack for him, and it's just in a closet. But the guy works all kinds of DX and, of course, nets and special events and all that. That works great. And I tell all of you, just have fun with it. There's KA1 GDQ. He's got a very nice station, and it works well. He's got some handy talkies where it works VHF also. And there again, you don't need a lot of things. You just need one thing that works, the antenna, and then any kind of radio. And you can see all kinds of them. And there's Mark's station. It's just a great looking station. And a lot of them have fun building all the different shelves and stuff for them. And everybody's makes things fit for what their room is and what their needs are. But how wonderful. That's W2YM. And the great stuff. There's really some great stuff that Mark has put into this station. He's got a lot of Icom gear in it, and PR40 driving it also. He has some real pretty audio, I'm sure. And then there's another setup. It's got a PR781 in it. How about that? And there again, these are wonderful setups that work well. And it should prove to you that you really don't need a whole bunch of things to make things happen and have a lot of fun on ham radio. And that's what we're trying to do here on Ham Nation, is to help you and help you get further along in the hobby. And that's really a great station. It looks like he's got some computer stuff going. That's probably a flex, I think. And I like his dummy load up there, his light bulb, WV2M. And you can hear him on the band. I've heard him several times, and he's got a big signal, and it sounds beautiful with his classic microphone. And that's one of the Heil classics, and goes well with all the transmitters. And there's a really nice setup. And again, there's several radios there, one for a backup and so on. But it's got UHF, VHF, and of course the computer, so we can keep up with logging and everything else. That's very important that you have that computer hooked up if you can, because you can do a lot of things with that. And KF4BFG, what a nice station, a nice cabinet that he's built up on top of the desk to hold all the power supplies. The tuner, that's a really great tuner. That's one of the Tech tuners. And it works real well. Good old Meritron amplifier to put a little fire in the wire, as we say. And there's one of the 7255 boys. Nice signals from all these stations. And I've heard and worked most of them. And there again, it's having fun putting all this together. That's what we're trying to achieve, is to show you that it is a fun thing. You see, he's got a Behringer there too. That's always fun. And here's another. This is Lee's setup, W0HSN, and Lee's not very far from me here. 781 microphone, and he's got a 50 on one of his Kenwoods. He sounds great, I can tell you that, because I work Lee quite often. And there again, he's got one of Jim's signs and Jim's engraving. Jim's got some great stuff going. And this is another, I think it's from Australia. He's got a really nice station down there. And I just can't tell you how much fun it is to see some of these great stations that you work, and they don't have to have 52 radios. They got one or two, but they're having as much fun as anybody because they're there for a project, and that's making it happen. And many of the ham radio stations, you need some kind of a test bench. It's very important to have a test bench if you want to work on radios, and there's one of them. A lot of test gear just for fixing your own radios. And eventually, if you're new to the hobby, you will get into fixing some of your radios. Might not be some of your modern 7800s or Yaesu 3000s or Kenwood 990s, but you'll get into some of the old stuff like all of us old coots, and there you can tear into the stuff pretty easy, and it's pretty simple to make it happen. And boy, do we appreciate all these pictures from you guys and gals. Keep them coming, and we're happy to have all these great pictures of the stations. And again, we know that all of you are proud of each of your stations, as well as working lots of stations. And it depends on what your likes are. As I said, some of you might just like to be working contests. Some like to just rag chew. And then you got a lot of guys working special events or, things like that. So it's really fun to show your station. So be sure and send your pictures of your stations to us, and we'll get them all up and get them to Julian so he can get them all edited or whatever and put them in line. So please do that. I wanted to show you guys what's happened here the last week. It's part of the reason that some of the signal gets a little degraded, especially last week. And here's why. We had a little bit of snow, nothing like Kansas City, which is about 2 hours up the road, but we had about 3.5 inches. And it was fun. There's the that's the Exceed dish. Just off to the right, you can see my tower. I cranked it down, so it's just barely above the outbuilding out there, the studio where the organ is. And I think the next picture really shows some of the excitement when you look out and see the elements on the antenna drooping. But that's okay. They're made to do that. And we were lucky we didn't have a lot of wind. That's what really goes crazy. But that's
how was your SWR, Bob?
Life and living in the Midwest. Do you like that, George?
Yeah, how was your SWR with all that ice?
Guess what? On my wires, it was no problem. No problem. There was Sarah. She was out riding around in the Gator today. The wire antennas were perfect. I had no problem. The thing is, I didn't get on 20 or 6. I should have. I guess I didn't. I was so busy on 75, 40, and 160. And I was amazed, George. There wasn't any problem at all. So we had fun with that. Now, this picture is special. This was taken by my friend Daryl, N0DBX. He's a part of the MoCan group. I work this every morning there on. I advise anybody, turn on your AM receiver on 3885. Some great knowledge there, and we have a lot of fun there. But Daryl took this great picture. He had a Nikon D70 with a 300 millimeter lens, and how you like that one, Don? Is that cool, Don?
That's very nice. I love cardinals. We've got a lot of cardinals down here in South Mississippi as well, and I've been seeing a whole lot of robins in my front yard, so maybe that's a portent for an early spring. I sure hope so.
Now, does anybody know what that middle bird is? Oh, we could be here all night. I'll tell you. Daryl told me it's a Carolina chickadee, so I didn't know, but there you go. I knew what the cardinal was, though.
I didn't
Thanks, Daryl, for letting us.
Background.
Yeah, isn't that great? Thanks, Daryl, for sharing that with us. But I thought I'd let you guys and gals see some of the snow that happened here. Now, I want to get into another thing here. What you see there, I got my Variac going this week. And you're going to say, what is a Variac? Well, I showed it to you a couple of weeks ago, and I finally got it installed. What that does is allow me to adjust the AC volts coming into the station. And sometimes it gets up around 120, 25 volts here. Well, all of these transmitters behind me and receivers, they were built back in the 40s and 50s when it was a 110-volt transformer. So you go smacking that baby with 125 volts, you're going to have a few problems with power supplies. So this is how I get around that and why this gear has lasted me for so long. I turn that up gently, and usually to around, there it is, before I put it in. That's the Variac, and it allows you to adjust the voltage. This one's about a 10 amp, and that's all I need for the receivers and exciters. That works so well, and I advise everybody to look into doing a Variac, because it also is a decoupling transformer, as I call it. Well, what do you think, George? That's a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah, isolation transformer. That's what we used to use on the workbench to keep from killing yourself.
Absolutely. Well, it helps a ground loop situation, but I have a digital meter, and that digital meter, you can see it behind me right here. Mm-hmm. This little guy, that digital meter is sitting on. That's right. First thing happens when I come in here, all this gear stays on all the time. I never turn the switches off, and I rotate that Variac until I see no more than 110, 12 volts, 112 volts on my digital meter, and I'm set. Tonight, when I get ready to turn it all off, I just rotate the Variac down to 0. That way, we don't have that big ow for those transformers. 25 or 30 volts sometimes hits those old transformers. I think we talked about that, George, and you do some of that too from your broadcast days, right?
Oh, yeah. And you know, the better transmitters have a soft start in them, so it doesn't just slam that plate voltage all in there at once. You know, they'll use SCRs or different techniques to kind of gradually bring it up. And, boy, those tubes like that a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I advise all of you to look around. You can see on eBay all the time. And they're not really expensive. You have to be careful that you don't want to buy a little 4 or 5 amp if you've got a lot of gear. Usually 10 amps will handle everything I'm doing here. But because I don't have them all on at the same time, they might be turned on, but they're not transmitting. And so it works fine. Most of these that I have here now, I think that one's a 15 amp. But my others that I have been around 10 amps, and they work great. But we really need to look at that when you're putting a station together. I think it's very valuable to make that happen. But look around on eBay, and as I told you last week, I saw some more gear this week. QRZ also has place you can go in and look at gear for sale on QRZ, and that really, the QTH is another one. QTH and QRZ, they both have some places that we can buy and sell gear, and it's really great because you can find things for a few $100s and it works great. So check it all out. It really means a lot to me when you guys and gals write me back and say, wow, I found the transmitter on the air, and that's what this is all about. And as Gordo said, all of us, George and Gordo and I, we been doing these club meetings, and I've been doing some Hamfest lately, even in the UK. And boy, is that fun, because it gets very tough to travel anymore. And this way, we don't have to travel. We do it from right here, and we can do all of our demos and so on. One last thing I want to show you. I've been working on switches. I finally got them all done. You know, there's all kinds of switches. This is my favorite. I like these old B&Ws because they all come straight out the back. But you know, we have the traditional ones. It's flat. This is an MFJ. R&L Electronics have their own line of rotary switches. I love all that. And then here is, the old Dow key relay. And let me tell you, this is quite a contraption, and we grew up with that, didn't we, George?
As a matter of fact, I've got one right here. This is probably a different brand, but more or less the same thing.
Yep. There you go. Well, Dow Key makes these relays. They've been around since the probably 30s, and there's a coil. And when you activate this coil, it switches. This is the antenna, and it switches from receive to transmit. This is getting ready to go on to my Harvey Wells up behind me that I brought in this last week. And so you have to wire this all so that this is a 110-volt coil. So you got to be careful now what you're dealing with. And what I do is I put a 12-volt relay behind it to key the 110, so I'm not having 110 on my foot switches and all that. But you find any Dow key relays, grab them. You're going to need them.
Yeah.
But we'll get into some more of that later. I've got some other things. We've been using a lot of the MFJs, and those are replacing my rotaries and all that now. We'll get into that some other time, but I wanted to show you the Dow keys and let you see what's going on with some of the old stuff. Well, we're going to get down to Don and see what's going on in Newsline, and here's some news about amateur radio that happened this week. So take it away, Don, with Newsline.
Newsline report number 1854. These are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, February 27, 2013. The Australian Communications and Media Authority has informed the Wireless Institute of Australia of proposed changes to spectrum usage in the 2300 to 2302 megahertz band. Changes that will result in advanced VK licensees losing access to that spectrum. Bill Pasternak, WA6ITF.
The ACMA proposes to acquire the spectrum for LTE radio purposes. LTE, or Long-Term Evolution, marketed as 4G LTE, is a wireless standard for high-speed data for mobile phones and data terminals. The change would give LTE services the full 100 megahertz of spectrum from 2300 to 2400 megahertz. Losing any spectrum is of great concern to Australian radio amateurs, as this secondary allocation is the only viable option for Earth-Moon-Earth or EME contacts to Region 2, where this activity is, of course, on 2304 megahertz, or Region 1, which uses 2320 megahertz. After such a reallocation, Australian EME activity would be confined to 2400 megahertz or above, where wireless medical and Wi-Fi equipment is likely to cause interference to weak signal reception by EME stations. And for hams in VK land, it could mean an end to most EME operations.
The ACMA plans to recommend the change to the Minister for Broadband Communications and Digital Economy. If the minister approves the change, Australian radio amateurs will probably lose access to the spectrum sometime in 2015. More on the situation is online at wia.org.au. The IARU Region 1 monitoring service reports on a mysterious over-the-horizon radar causing interference in the 28 megahertz amateur radio band. The mysterious signal disturbs the 28 to 29 megahertz segment of 10 meters, often with signals that are 60 kilohertz wide and jumping in bursts. The location of the transmitter appears to be someplace in the Middle East, but so far getting precise bearings has proven to be difficult. An article in the just-out March issue of QST magazine, Amateur Radio Goes to School, will be of interest to anyone involved in emergency communications. The article is a report on the annual Disaster Management Initiative workshop held at Carnegie Mellon University. David Witkowski, W6DTW.
Carnegie Mellon's Disaster Management Initiative started a few years ago in an effort to bring academic focus to public safety communications and disaster response. Most of what we know about disaster response is really empirical. We've developed it over time, and through interaction with other responders, we've put together a body of knowledge which is suitable. But what Carnegie Mellon is trying to do with the Disaster Management Initiative is apply academic rigor to the question of disaster response.
According to Witkowski, the Carnegie Mellon University's Disaster Management Initiative is somewhat a unique entity in that it's one of the very few instances where disaster management and disaster communications are being studied in a formal academic setting. It's also distinctive in that the Disaster Management Initiative leadership team of deans and professors and most of the workshop participants are licensed radio amateurs. W6DTW's article appears in Rick Palm's public service column in the March issue of QST beginning on page 82. If you're involved in any aspect of emergency service participation, this commentary is must reading.
Jim Davis, W2JKD reporting. An all-new, all-mode, low-priced, high-frequency transceiver from China is on the way. Again, W2JKD.
The new radio is being billed primarily as a marine band transceiver, but its published specifications read more like a mid-range piece of ham radio gear. For instance, the FT808 has a receive range of 500 kilohertz to 29.9 megahertz and a transmitter that covers 1.6 to 29.9 megahertz. In other words, it covers all the ham radio bands from 160 through 10 meters and a lot more. One thing of note, while transmitter power appears to be in the 100 watt or slightly higher range, there appears to be no provision to lock out transmission on 11 meters. This will likely keep it from gaining FCC acceptance for legalized sales in the United States, at least not at its current non-locked out 11-meter configuration.
That said, the Phytong FT808 carries a delivered list price of only $410 US, and you can see that video on YouTube. Just search for IW9GYY. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news, brought to you each and every week for 35 years and counting at www.arnewsline.org. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW 73. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. You know, Bob, one thing we haven't covered a whole lot on Ham Nation is moon bounce, getting back to the lead story in the Newsline report. That's something that I've actually had a few emails from viewers and listeners, and it might be something to touch on one of these days, is to get into some moon bounce stuff. What do you think about that?
Oh, don't see Bob. Don, you know, we used to do some moon bounce with our HTs when we hung them on our belt loop there.
That's a whole different kind of moon bounce, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time to go to Smoke and Solder. So let's head on over there while Bob's getting reconnected. You know, I was working on a project for last week that didn't pan out, and you can tell by all these wires and things I've got hanging behind me there that it has been kind of smoky in here. The soldering iron has been on, but I still haven't got that project worked out. I'm waiting to hear hear from some other guys on it to try to get a little more input, see if we can bring that one to the show. But this week, I thought it would be good to go back to talking about some electronic subjects again, and components in particular. You know, we covered capacitors, a number of episodes back, and we covered capacitive reactance. So this week, let's talk a little bit about inductors. This week on Smoking Solder, we're going to talk about inductors. When an electrical current flows through a wire, a magnetic field is developed around the conductor, producing a relationship between the direction of the field and the direction of the current flowing through the wire. When the wire is in a coil, a secondary voltage is induced into the coil by the movement of the magnetic flux as it opposes any change in the current flow. An inductor, also called a choke, is a coil of wire, sometimes wound around a core. For most coils, the current flowing through the coil produces a magnetic flux around it that's proportional to the flow of the current. An inductor with a core is designed to take advantage of this relationship by inducing a magnetic field into itself and the core. This results in a much stronger magnetic field than one that would be produced by a simple coil of wire. The schematic symbol for an air core inductor is similar to a coil of wire. The iron core inductor symbol adds two parallel lines, and for ferrite core inductors, the lines are dotted. Variable inductors include an arrow in the drawing. An inductor is almost the opposite of a capacitor. Capacitors oppose a change of voltage across their plates, and inductors oppose the rate of change of current flowing through them. Inductors resist or oppose changes of an AC current, but will easily pass a steady DC current. The ability of an inductor to resist changes in current relates to its magnetic flux and is called inductance. The inductance symbol is L, which is measured in henries, after Joseph Henry. In an inductor, only the resistance of the coil will oppose the flow of DC current. In contrast, capacitors block DC currents from flowing. Inductors are very common in electrical circuits and come in many forms which determine the inductance of a coil, such as the shape of the coil, the number of turns of wire, the number of layers of wire, the spacing between the turns, the permeability of the core material, the size, and the cross-sectional area of the core, to name a few. The primary use for inductors is in filtering circuits, resonance circuits, and for current limiting. An inductor can also be used in a circuit to block or reshape AC current. The formulas used for calculating multiple inductors in a circuit are right the opposite of capacitors, or they're the same as the resistor formulas. To find the value of 3 series inductors, we would add the value of each together. Assuming one inductor is 1 microhenry, another inductor is 10 microhenries, and a third inductor is 100 microhenries, when we add those together, 1 plus 10 plus 100, we come up with 111 microhenries for the total inductance. Parallel inductors are another matter altogether. First, we take the reciprocal of each inductor's value, add those together, and then we take the reciprocal of that number. Assuming we're using the same 1 microhenry, 10 microhenry, and 100 microhenry inductors, this time connected in parallel, we would take the reciprocal of 1, add that to the reciprocal of 10, and add that to the reciprocal of 100. Then we would take the reciprocal of that number and find that the total inductance for these 3 in parallel is 0.9 microhenries. Now let's take a look at a simplified practical example of how we might use an inductor. Here's a schematic symbol for a triode tube commonly used in linear amplifiers. You'll notice a plate at the top. That takes a high voltage in, and we also get our amplified signal from there. The grid on the side is where we inject the lower level RF signal that needs to be amplified. Now let's assume that we've got a plate voltage of 3000 volts we need to feed into the plate of that tube. However, we don't want the RF from the tube coming back into the plate power supply. That would create a lot of problems. So we can use an inductor of the proper value here to allow the DC to pass, but block the RF from getting back to the power supply. Now, we've still got one problem here. We also need to couple the plate of that tube over to our antenna for the RF output. And we certainly don't want that 3,000 volts from the power supply being present on the antenna. We know that a capacitor will block DC, but will allow AC to pass. So choosing the proper value of capacitor there, we could do exactly what we need. Let the RF signal through, but block the DC from the antenna. Now, this is very simplified. Actually, there'll be a lot more components involved than this, but this should give you some idea of one application for an inductor and capacitor. Now, join us again next week when we'll show you how to solve all the world's problems through the creative use of wire and tinfoil.
Shazam!
Well, there you go. A little bit on inductors, and we'll talk about inductive reactance in the future and maybe put some of these parts together and show you a lot of other things that you can do with them that we didn't even touch on at all tonight. And last week's contest in Smoke and Solder, we showed you a tripod for mounting a mobile antenna out on the ground and using it for a portable rig. My friend Wayne brought his over and showed us how he built it, and we set it up and tested it. We used an antenna analyzer to do that with. Now, I asked the question, what other popular instrument could you have used instead of an antenna analyzer? Got a lot of answers on that, but the one who got drawn was John King, WB4NHX, and John said you could use an SWR meter to measure SWR. Makes sense to me, John, so congratulations. You're going to win this nice on-the-air light over here from our friends at cheapham.com. And for next week's question, what's it going to be? Here we go. What type of filter is this? What would you call this circuit? And if you think you know that, send me an email to hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you could win a copy of Jerry Buston's Great Constructing HF Wire Antennas book that you can find at your local ham dealer. So send me an email, hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and give me your answer. What is this? And I don't take personal emails or anything on there, but contest entries. So if you're trying to contact me, that's not the way to do it. Strictly contest entries at that address. Bob, are you back with us?
I think. I'm not sure what's going on here. Must be snowing in Denver again. Oh, well, that's where the gateway is for this thing. Great thing. And your stuff is just so good and so useful, George. That's the whole thing. It's just so useful. And I'm sure that old and new alike learn something every week from your Smoke and Solder. So we appreciate your help. I miss you on 75 these days. You got to get up an antenna, or if you got one, you got to get on the air more. You know that, don't you?
Well, I was actually on with the guys on 3847. I don't remember. Maybe it was Monday night. Chatted with them there a little bit, but I'm getting on some. We just haven't been able to coordinate, I guess.
Okay, I was on with the 20A last night, and I got the okay thumbs up from JD and John and all the guys. And I miss Cheryl though. I think she goes to bed at 7:30 at night now. I'm not sure what the deal is after Ham Nation. She's going to answer that in a minute. What is it? Huh? When do you go to bed? You go to bed at 7:30 or 8?
You are so cute, Bob. Hi,
Yeah,
how are you? Actually,
well,
it depends. It really just depends. I don't think it's 7:30 or 8, but
it depends on when David takes over the radio. I know what it depends on.
Right. We have to arm wrestle for that one, don't we?
Yeah.
It's one of these.
Well, Cheryl's here to give us some of the chat room happenings. But before we do that, we have a report here from Don. He's going to tell you about some Icom gear. So, Don, take it away, and let's hear some more about Icom.
Yeah, I've taken off my newsman hat, and I've put on the Icom hat because we're going to talk about the Icom 9100. If you're looking for a great all-in-one radio, a radio that's very versatile, that has expansion capabilities, then the Icom IC 9100 just might be the one for you. If you're like me and you've got a fairly small operating station here, you want to have kind of an all-in-one box. That's kind of the situation I have. And the 9100 covers most of the ham bands and modes and offers a wide variety of operating styles. Now, you go to the IcomAmerica.com website, and you can see all about it. There it is right there. Look at that display. It's gorgeous. It has AM, FM, sideband, RTTY, CW, and optional D-Star with the D-Star module. A satellite mode operation, as you would expect, with a radio that covers HF 6, 2 meters, and 440 right out of the box. There is also a 1200 megahertz module that you can plug in. There it is right there. You see it on your screen. It gives you 1.2 gig. So satellite mode operations, all right there. There are independent receivers, up to 3 first IF roofing filters for HF and 6. Industry-leading DSP technology. If you've not used the Icom IF DSP, man, you are missing out. It supports many of the digital processing features like the AGC, the IF filter, your twin passband filters, and a lot more. It's a double conversion, super heterodyne system with an image rejection mixer. This thing listens like you would not believe. Ears like an owl, this thing. Large multifunction LCD display with the cool blue. It's really, really easy to see. It's the same color scheme that I had on my Icom 746, which I dearly love, that Hurricane Katrina took from me. All the displays, information like your function key assignments, a graphical SWR scale, the D-Star data, the GPS positioning, all right there on the big multifunction LCD. It's really easy to see, and you're going to love it. Also, a USB port for rig control and audio, and you have the optional programming and remote control software capabilities as well. It's a great radio, and you certainly owe it to yourself to take a look at this. Visit icomamerica.com/hamnation. You'll find a lot more information on the popular IC 9100 from Icom. Also, while you're there, enter to win the Icom weekly drawing. You can get some Icom swag like T-shirts and hats. There it is right there, and everybody who registers is automatically entered into the monthly grand prize drawing for the free Icom radio. Again, it's icomamerica.com/hamnation. All the official rules are there. Check out all of Icom's previous drawing winners, and your name could be there very soon. Sign up, and good luck. And thank you very much, Icom, for being a sponsor of Ham Nation. Bob, back to you.
All right. I've been listening over on 7268 on the 7600. What a great radio. I usually use I really like the 870. I always have, because of the audio quality, and it really is superior. But the receiver is nothing like the Icom, and the 7800's been with me a long time. But oh my God, the 7600, I'm starting to love it more and more each day, because it really gets in there. Such a quiet receiver, and I'm really thrilled with that. But man, I gotta do something about my VHF here, and it looks like the 9100 is going to be the animal, because I'm pretty dull on hearing on 6 and 2 meters. George, you're not dull. You got something in your bag, I think, to give away, or to help give away, about the Icom contest. What you got?
Yeah, Don was just talking about the contest there and the swag portion of it, and about how they're going to give away radios. And by the way, Don, I got my Icom hat out too.
Very stylish, my friend. Very stylish.
Thank you. And contemporary too.
Yes.
So in February, what we're giving away is the ID31A compact submersible UHF handy talkie that has GPS, D-Star, automatic repeater list up, and a micro SD card, and a lot more. That's a great little handy talkie. It's got everything you need in it, and a UHF radio. And if you'd like to win that, as Don said, just go to IcomAmerica/HamNation and enter. You can enter after each episode of Ham Nation. That means this is the last time you can enter for this month and your chance to win that radio. So go do it as soon as the show ends here. Throw your name in the hat and you could win. Don't know what next month's prize is going to be yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we find out. Bob?
Well, hey, I got better than a hat. I got my Icom code on. And let me tell you, these days I need it.
I'm going to break out my 7800 jacket here in a minute. Keep up with that.
There you go. Oh, gosh, we have too much fun. Well, thanks a lot, George, and I hope somebody can come up winning all this. This is really great, and I appreciate Icom coming aboard. That's wonderful. Well, I think it's time to move up to Northern Illinois, and Cheryl's got some reports about what's going on in the chat room. So, Cheryl, take it away.
Hey, good evening. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone in the chat room and watching tonight, and future listeners of the podcast, too. There are a couple things going on in here tonight, Bob. I do like your Icom jacket. I think that looks really nice. And I wanted to ask you this. A question for Bob from K7AGE Randy. He says, how many watts or amps is your Variac good for?
This one I just installed. I've got several of them, but this one I just installed is a 15 amp. And I also have a 25 amp that'll be used for some of the amplifiers. But this one does fine for the transmitters and receivers.
Thank you. And Bob, could you put your audio hat on for us tonight? I've got a new question I haven't seen from N0GHS or anybody else before. He says he needs help. He's getting RF in his Behringer 1222 mixer audio, but not in his audio rack, just when he put the mixer in line. Everything's grounded. Any suggestions there for N0GHS?
RFI is a toughie. We could be here for days. One of the things about RFI is you might have too many grounds. You ground the 3-pin that goes into the 110, you know, that round pin where the others are blades. You ground it there. Then that comes up into the mixer. And then with your 1/4-inch plug, you go over and put it into some kind of rack stuff or whatever. That is also plugged in to an AC plug. Well, the first thing you know, you have a nice ground loop. It goes to the fuse box, and it goes up here, goes out to the road, comes back. A lot of times you have to remove one of those ground pins, but you have to be careful here. We're not saying to leave yourself vulnerable. Everything has to be grounded, but has one path to ground. That causes a lot of problems. You have an answer for that too, George? I know you do, working in broadcast, but make myself clear with that one ground thing.
Yeah, that can work sometimes. My best suggestion for preventing RFI is do whatever works, because the same thing doesn't work at different locations, and the same thing might not work at the same location 2 days in a row. You can use small value capacitors to bypass different parts of the circuit. Possibly it's coming in on the power supply. Possibly it's coming back in through the output of the unit. I like to use audio isolation transformers as much as I can, and that helps a lot. Just a little 600 to 600 ohm transformer, that'll get it. That's where it's coming in. You know, it all depends on the source of the RF. It doesn't always come in from the same direction. So you just have to do some experimenting there. Get you some ferrite beads. Try those around different places. Try some bypass capacitors. Try breaking the ground. Get you one of those little, these 3-pronged or 2-pronged adapters that everybody used to have to hook newer gear into their old houses. Get you some of those and experiment with where you should lift that ground. And just, like I say, whatever works. That sound good to you, Bob?
Absolutely. And you're right. What works today probably won't work tomorrow. It's tough, Cheryl. It's a tough thing to answer because there's so many variables. But we just give you a few things to start with.
Excellent. Thanks for the tips, guys. We appreciate it. And there's a good one in here. I just wanted to say, a Web 8181, he says, and I want to pose this to you, George. Anyone have any suggestions for cleaning audio pots with something less expensive than deoxit? Anything else that could be used for cleaning audio pots, George?
Oh, you could use all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of different brands of contact cleaner out there. And for just cleaning, yeah, they work fine. You could use a little denatured alcohol if you could figure out a way to get it in there. But what the deoxit does, in addition to cleaning it, it puts a little semiconductive protective layer over it and lubricant, and that'll help the kind of rejuvenate the pot a little bit. But as far as cleaning, there's all kinds of stuff. You know, we used to use Freon for that, but that's kind of been outlawed now. But just about any good contact cleaner would
George, could you
work.
use anything as harsh as, say, brake cleaner or carburetor cleaner on that? I would think that might be a little bit rough.
I wouldn't. I know one particular engineer who used to use WD-40 for cleaning everything, but I wouldn't do it.
So I was thinking that as
No,
well. They used to make a product called Blue Stuff. Do they still make that?
I haven't seen it in a long time, but yeah, that stuff worked. But if you use blue stuff, it left such a gunky mess in there. You'd have
That's
to
true,
come
yeah.
back with some blue shower and wash all of that out.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I simply use Radio Shack, believe it or not. It works fine. It's just good old contact and control cleaner and lubricant. And I use this on my old gear. It works fine. Have you used that, George?
I have used that, and if that's what I got, that's what I've used, and I've used it for years. I used to call it Color TV Tuner Cleaner, I think.
Yep.
Wow.
But,
Yeah.
One thing I'll warn about that deoxit, though, is it'll take an old pot or an old switch and make it like brand new instantly. But after a while, it's going to start wearing off, and that pot might be a little worse than it was the first time it went bad.
It's all a temporary fix.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. There you have it,
And,
Web
hey,
8181. We tried. Anyhow, those are
Cheryl,
really great. Go ahead.
Hey, Cheryl, here's your transformer you're talking about. Here's the primary, here's the secondary. And what's cool about that is when you use these for input, for outputs from your mixer to your sources, whatever, this really relieves you from any ground. There's no grounds between these two, and it removes all that kind of RFI junk. I use a lot of these, and a little bit hard to find once in a while, but these are old triads, and they work great, and that way you can eliminate a lot of ground loop problems with transformers in and out.
Very good information. I've never think I've seen a transformer quite that small. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. And I have one more here from WE2H as in hotel. Ed says, please ask George why he doesn't use ESD protection, which is electrostatic discharge protection, when working on solid state equipment. I thought even a lightning bolt far away could get you, George. What do you have for that?
I just have never done it, never had a problem with it. Here in the South, our humidity is a lot higher, so we don't have quite the static electricity problems that you do in the other parts of the country. But I guess I've just been lucky. I haven't really needed it here. And I don't have carpet on my workbench, and I don't slide my feet around and then go up and start working on stuff,
Right, and you don't use a rubber comb.
No.
Exactly. All right, thank you. And I just had this question from Chris, N80XC. He says, what model CW key or paddles are your favorites? They kind of wanted to know that, what you use for CW. What's your favorite keys? Anybody want to take that one?
I was looking for mine. Oh, yeah, here it is, right here. Right here. I don't work much CW. That's my key right there. Or my foot switch works great. But of course, I'm just joshing you. I don't work CW. My only key is my push to talk line or my my foot switch. George is the CW operator, right?
Actually, I'm not, but I do have a key. I just got this key recently from Martin and Richard at MFJ. This is their little standard key here, mounted on a nice little wood base. And, not a real expensive key. I think maybe they were around $29. But I've got it now because every now and then I do have to do something where you'll need a key. So maybe one day I'll learn it.
I had a little key that I
here's
bought
my
at Dayton
key.
several years ago. Little key that I bought at Dayton several years. It was made out of one of those large paperclip deals. I think it was called a bulldog key. It was a tiny, tiny little thing, little iambic key. I used to play around with that. Of course, I mean, I can barely spell CW. I don't work CW either, but that was a cool little key that I bought at Dayton a few years ago.
Here's a key for you all. Check it out. World War II. It's a key, right? Yeah, but there's a kicker to it.
Neat.
What's this for?
Straps
this is
to your leg
put
for a
it
pilot.
on your knee.
Yep.
It's to put it on your
knee.
leg.
Oh, that's
Serious.
neat.
Ow. And you
So-
da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yep.
How you like that, George? That's
pretty
cool
nifty.
stuff, huh?
So if we see you coming down the highway and you don't have both hands on the wheel, the other one's down there on your leg,
That's
tapping
right.
it out, huh?
Yep.
Thanks,
there you
guys.
Go.
Thank
Low
you. And
power
here's
This is
the,
for real.
here's one.
There you
Here's
are.
one. We pulled it out of a little bit of dust on it. Hasn't been used lately, but it's a bencher and it's an iambic straight key. But it's kind of nice, actually. You can see probably a lot. And this thing weighs a lot. My arm is getting tired just holding it up. It probably weighs a good pound at least or more, maybe a couple pounds. That's how heavy that bass is. I don't know what that thing's made out of, but it might be rare earth for all I know. Jeez. Well, I think that
Cheryl.
should pretty much wrap everything up this week so far. But
I tell you what's going to happen. We are going to get chewed up by the chat room because we're not big CW operators. I didn't say I didn't like it. I love CW, but my problem is I'm always doing something, and I know that you are, George, and I think Don is too. I'm always soldering stuff. You've seen this bench. I built me a special bench, and I got all my soldering irons here. I'm always doing something else, and I can't operate CW and talk. And so, no, I'm sorry, but I certainly appreciate you guys. And I had one of my good friends that passed away recently, and he could do about 60 words a minute talk to you and type, and amazing. So I really appreciate good CW operators. Yeah. I am terrible at it. And before I leave you back to Cheryl, here's what you got to do right here. You get you a little 001 bypass cap, just a simple little capacitor. And you take the jack that's coming out of your Behringer, and you just put that little puppy right in there. And you can get a small enough one; it'll fit in the jacket. You just want to put it from the tip to the ground, and that will solve a lot of problems. And I do that automatically when I build the station. Every one of those jacks in and out, even my 8 pins, whatever. I put a small 001 from the audio to ground, and it really works, and it solves a lot of problems. So just thought I'd pass that on to help a few guys and gals, Cheryl.
Well, thank you. That's a great tip from your Uncle Bob, K9EID. Boy, he really sharing a secret one there. Doesn't tell that to everybody, but now it's out to the world, Bob. Thanks so much for that. And I just wanted to have a comment to be noted here. K0HYD Dale says, Bob, sometime it would be nice to see some pictures of the wiring behind all those radios you got. I bet you that's just great to see anyway. I'm sure you're not going to pull out the desks all the time, but, you know, they still like to see what you do. You got a lot of tips of the trade and great things you do. So thanks for sharing. Keep your questions coming. We really appreciate it. Thanks for letting us come and visit you tonight on Ham Nation. See you next time. Take care now. 73.
Thanks, Cheryl. What a nice job you always do. And we really appreciate the chat room being there. And there you go. Big guns. You got it. All right. Don, thanks so much for being with us. George, appreciate all your work. And you got any last minute things on RFI or whatever?
I think we pretty well covered it. You know, you try them all, and whichever one works, you keep that one, and you can take the rest back out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's certainly no secret. It's just common science. And the problem is that the situation is that we don't hear a lot about this stuff. And that's what Ham Nation does for you and all your friends. And it's why you need to be here every week, because you never know what's going on. We don't have a script. We start off with one, but we never follow some of it. At least I don't. I'm terrible at it. But we just want to bring you information about this great hobby of ham radio. That's where it's all at. Dale, I will love to take you behind. I'm very proud of what's behind these racks. When I built this station, you can walk all the way around it. And I made sure I can do that because you can't pull things out from the wall. That's very, very important when you're building a station. Make sure you don't put it up against a wall. You have to be able to get behind it. You got it right. There are probably several miles of wire back here. And I'll take you through it. So I want to do a video of. You can't do it live. But I've been thinking about doing it to share that with everybody. It's part of the relay I had here. I want to get it all in. I got one more to go, and then we'll have all the wiring done. What's interesting, everything you see behind me works, everything. And I can have it on the air within a minute. Just all plugs and the little switch panels and all of this. And you want to be able to do that. It's nothing outrageous. I am no special ham. I'm just a freak for all these old radios as well as the new stuff. And so now I guess I got to make a place somewhere for that 9100. I got to do something for VHF. Then I got it complete. Well, everybody, we're going to go see what's going on 7268. I listened a while ago, and we always have a big broadcast station into there. But I'll switch up and we'll listen to what's going on the other transceiver and see what's happening up there. See, that's how fast it takes me to switch from one to the other. There he is. That's coming from the 7600. And I can flip that switch and flip that one, and we can go down here. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? There he is. Couldn't find him. Anyway, we can go from one to another. It's just cool. But there's that 7600. What an incredible receiver. Anyway, so then we're 7268. They're pretty close. 3850, 3847. I think that's going to be about it for tonight because 20 meters is dead. But that's what's going on, everybody. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week right here on Ham Nation. And next week, we're going to have the video a week before on the Tim Allen Show. You're going to find out what's going on. It's really super. Thanks for supporting Ham Nation. Be sure and tell all your club members, tell all your friends, get on all your nets Wednesday night. And most important, we want you to go out and look at the replays. That's the numbers that count for Mr. Leo. Leo does not get any kind of recognition from his internet because of live. He gets it from replays. So go out and look on iTunes. Look Ham Nation into Google. It's real easy to find. Ham Nation into Google, and you'll see all the replays. Please go back and watch them. At least dial them up so we know you're there. It's really important. Thanks to the chat room. Thanks to Cheryl, George, Don, and, of course, the entire crew back in Petaluma. We really appreciate you guys being there. So long, 7-3. Bye-bye for now from K9EID.